Hi, I'm Susan Evans from susanevans.org, and today joining me is my husband, Alan Evans, and, oh good, you can hear me. Today's session is listening to your husband. Listening is crucial to understanding another person, and especially in marriage, it is so vital. You want to have oneness in your marriage. In order to have oneness, you need to understand how the other person is thinking about something, and it is especially important for the wife, but I'll tell you, in general, it's important to listen to other people. In fact, Scripture mentions how important it is to listen. James 1:9 says we need to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Proverbs 12:15 says fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to advice. Philippians 2:3 says that we need to think of others as more important than ourselves. Romans 12:3 says, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought. And the reason I'm mentioning those scriptures is because I think humility has a lot to do with listening. And also, I know that when I'm interrupting, it's because I'm putting myself first. And so listening really requires you to esteem the other person as more important. Galatians 6:3 says, for if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. That's one of my favorite verses. So humility is actually higher, and pride is lower. Pride causes you to plug your ears to the other person, and so really love considers the other person as more important than yourself, and so you want to open up your heart to listen. And then my very favorite listening verse is Proverbs 18:13, which is, he who answers before listening, that is his folly and his shame. In other words, before listening fully to what somebody is saying, if you're formulating in your mind what you're going to say while they're still talking, Scripture calls you a fool. And all of these verses apply to all people. So that means that a husband who does not listen to his wife is a fool, and a wife who does not listen to her husband is a fool. I said it in that order on purpose so you could hear me, because I know that my audience is hugely women. And so I said that on purpose in that order. But both of those things are true. So today I want to address on the part of the wife what we can do to better listen and understand our husbands. Well, I'll start with a very interesting anecdote of a time when I actually twisted what my husband was saying to become hurt. And this is one thing women do which cause men to clam up and not talk anymore. And I'm going to tell you, I'll ask him more bluntly later. Well, sure, I can ask him now, get it out in the open. Why do men, okay, on the Homeschool channel on Facebook today, I saw someone ask the question that why do men stop talking to their wives? In other words, this whole show is about listening to your husband, but a lot of wives have husbands who don't talk to them. So it seems like square one. How do we get our men to talk to us, and why have you guys stopped talking to us?
Well, okay. I would say that for the most part, men in a marriage or in any relationship, they want to avoid conflict. Most conflict, they think, is unnecessary, and a lot of things that are being said during a conflict, most men look at it and go, boy, I wish we didn't have to go there. I wish we didn't have to, to even deal with these things. And I think that a lot of men who've been in a long-term relationship, like a marriage that's been going on for many years, they've kind of gotten into the habit of thinking every time I talk to my wife, it's always something really weighty. It's always something really heavy, and I'm tired today, and I don't feel like doing that. So men are unlikely to engage their wife if they think that the follow-on to that engagement is going to be, staying up late and missing their favorite show or something like that. It's, if
So you're saying you have idolatry?
Yes. No, well, okay. I'm saying that if you're a woman who is interested in connecting with her husband, maybe, if you identify a problem now, if you want to get that ball rolling, maybe you should start with a little bit of softball. I mean, don't start off the journey by saying, we need to sit down and fix our budget, and we need to talk about our children's spirituality, and we need to talk about these things. Ready, go. The guy's just like, oh my gosh, he's right then he's just thinking of his happy place and where he can run and hide. So if right now you think that your relationship with your husband is strained in the communication area, and you want to get that going, you might warm them up first with something that's a little easier to talk about. Anything. Even if you think it's inconsequential, is your goal to talk about these things, or is your goal to get your husband into a mood to talk to you about anything?
Right.
Right? So if he is kind of like getting kind of, I don't know, isolated, it may just be that, men are lazy. I know that
the truth comes out.
Yeah, men they if there's an easy way to get through something and a hard way to get through something, they'll almost always pick the easy way. It's just, I think sometimes they feel like, well, I've done hard work all day. My boss has demanded this of me, and I've had to do this, and this wasn't easy. And I get home and I'm like, and then my wife comes running around the corner and talking about, oh, we need to figure out, which swim lessons the kids are going to go into, and we need to worry about this, and and the college fund is underfunded this month, and and the guy's just like, I thought I was done with work for today. And I'm not justifying that a man's avoidance is right. I mean, it's not. A man has to be responsible. A man has to deal with the things in his life. I mean, he's the leader of the family. He has to deal with what's going on. But if you're a wife who's in a situation where your husband's kind of pulled back and you want him to loosen up and drop the walls, I would say probably the full frontal assault of deep, heavy, binding situations is probably not the best first move.
So it helps to be positive as a woman.
Yes.
And a lot of times all of our interaction with our husband is negative, and so when we walk into the room, he might want to walk away because you're always negative.
Well,
maybe?
I can confirm. I know. Well, I know that. Okay, really, most guys, they come to their family. I'll come home. I mean, I'm driving home from work. I'm ready to see my family. I'm very excited about playing with my kids and stuff like that. And I come through the door, and the first thing I hear is Kid A screaming about Kid B, and Kid C is crying because Kid D did this, and it takes me about 3 minutes to regret having wished that I was coming home. So positivity helps a lot. I mean, even if it's artificial, it's just like, okay, you're home. We're glad that you're home.
Pretend you're happy.
Yes. Well, I mean, no, I'm just saying, show, even just telling him you're glad he's home,
right,
is a huge difference from the first thing is, Sally did this, and you need to spank Johnny, and this, and that's not the first thing he wants to hear coming through the door. He wants to settle into, kind of a haven, a positive home where he, feels like, okay, I have some investment here. I have some stuff I can do. Not like, oh gosh, I wish I could just go back to work.
Yeah, well, when you have a connection with your spouse, I think that helps because then when you look at each other, you're more one, and so that helps. I mean, when you've worked on your marriage and you've gotten through things and stuff like that, I think that helps in general. What I just jotted down here is not listening before. You mentioned that women, if they have not listened to their husbands in previous conversations, there's no reason why would he talk to you if you don't listen to him anyway, right? Is that
Yeah.
another reason
Well,
why
that's
men don't
no,
talk to
no. I
us? Is
think
because we're not really listening, or we're not listening about small things. You also said that, but there's big things that we haven't listened, okay? Because we haven't followed through in what you wanted, and that was actually wrong, because the husband is the leader of the home, and to have oneness, you know, that's necessary. But okay, I don't know if you want to address the little things being important, because women see the big picture, and so you mentioned a little bit of trivia, and we either pay attention to the trivia or we discard the trivia, and then you think it's strange that we didn't pay attention.
Well, to begin with, if your husband isn't really communicating with you at all, then if he says something small, that's something big, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, because he doesn't normally say anything at all. So if he says something small, maybe there's a reason. You know, I think that everybody, men and women both, they come into a relationship, you know, in terms of communication, and they have an agenda. So you have a person here with agenda A, and you have a person over here with agenda B, and they come together, and you know, whatever's going on in between them is not communication, right? Because you know, this person's trying to talk about this, and this person doesn't think that that's important, and they're trying to talk about something else who the first person doesn't think is important. You think much communication is going to happen under those circumstances? Not at all.
No.
So, you know, the problem really is that both people in marriage will do this. So the whole situation just spirals and gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So if you're the spouse who's identified that, hey, we need to improve this, maybe you should be the one to break the cycle.
Right.
You know, and listen, most disappointment that people have comes from, you know, hey, I expected I deserved something, right? I come home and I deserve for my wife to treat me in a certain way, and when she doesn't, that, you know, I get mad, I get angry, right? But really, there's no righteous indignation there. That's selfish indignation. I wanted something and you didn't give it to me. But, you know, in this world, the only person I can change is me. I can't even change my own spouse. I mean, you know, God's the only one who really changes people around you. So, you know, expecting other people to behave in a certain way and then getting angry when they don't is not constructive.
Okay, well, that leads into this first example, which let's see here. Is there a resentment factor involved when a woman has been alone all day with children? Oh my goodness, that's a good question. I think that if a woman feels that she's been okay,
hold on. Wait. Okay, first off, don't take any of my words to mean that men are really tired from work and they're the only ones who work here. Okay, men, there may be one or two of you here listening to this. If you think that you're the only one in this relationship doing work, you need to disavow yourself of that opinion pretty quickly, especially if you have kids. If you have children, your wife is easily working as hard as you are, probably not doing the kinds of things that you do, but, you know, I mean, as hard as your job might be for her, you don't want to take over her job, not long term. I mean, I can take care of my kids for an evening, but you know, you have me take care of my kids for a week, and you know, they'll be, you know, peeling me off the walls. So yeah. So to begin with, I mean, you know, a guy can resent that. Oh, I go out and I work, and I earn.
The woman's
yeah, but I say the guy can resent that on one end. The woman can resent it at the other end. But once again, both of them come together. All that is conflict. You know, neither party is going to make much progress when they're expecting the other person to solve their problems. So.
Right. And I think from the woman's point of view, a lot of women, especially with young children, somehow have the false expectation that their husband will take over the work when they get home. And then when their husband is tired and that expectation is not met, then resentment can set in. I was never under that delusion, so, but I have a lot of friends who are, and I don't know how to shake them out of that.
Well, you know, obviously, you know, so a woman who stays at home with any number of children, and children are childish, they'll wear you out. She's going to be tired at the end of the day. Any guy who's gone out and done a decent day's work is probably going to be pretty tired, and even guys who sit behind a desk all day. I mean, I do software engineering. I sit behind a desk all day, but I get to the end of 7-8 hours of work, and I'm exhausted because the kind of work I do is very mentally taxing. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I don't do work, and it's not like my wife doesn't do work. We do different kinds of work. So sometimes on particular days, the wife may be very, very tired at the end of the day, and the husband, if he's a good husband, will recognize that and try to take up some of the slack. On the other hand, sometimes the guy comes home and he's just like, man, I just want to be left alone for an hour so that I can kind of get work out of my head. And if the wife recognizes that, well, maybe she can find something constructive for the kids to do that doesn't require the parents to work at all. Mm-hmm. But what the guy doesn't want after a day like something difficult is he doesn't want to come home and be immediately accosted by all the chores he needs to do.
Nagging. That's another thing I didn't even think of.
And so yeah, it's not resenting your partner for not meeting your expectations. First off, that's selfish indignation. There's no righteous indignation there at all. So if you're doing that, you really need to get on your knees and ask God. Say, listen, I recognize my heart is deceitful, and I'm desiring things which I frankly don't deserve, and I need your help. That's all any of us can really do. It's the couples that cling to God as the only strength they really have are the ones who are going to make it. The couples who try this trick or that trick. I mean, we talk about some practical things in this show about how you can boost communication, but ultimately the one who invented communication is the only one who's going to ultimately fix your marriage in the area of communication. So if you're not relying on God to make you a better person, all the tricks in the world are simply human effort and are ultimately gonna fall flat.
Oh my goodness, that makes me think of this couple that went in for counseling. The wife felt like her husband never listened to her, and the counselor said, reflect back to her what she said, and so he went ahead and did that, and she felt so much better, but it did not help their marriage in any way except for her delusion that her husband cared when nothing had changed in his heart. So tactics like that don't help at all if your heart isn't changed. Your heart has to be towards your partner or your husband. And the other thing is, however, what the counselor did say about reflecting, okay, the part of that you can use that's effective is like, if my husband says something to me, especially about politics or something I don't understand, well, I understand some politics. I keep out of it as much as I can, except for voting. But he'll say something to me, and then I will ask him questions and clarify and pull out of him everything so I can fully understand what he's saying. So this is helpful in listening, and Ken and Becky do the same thing. They are gray-haired mentors and they are the wisest people that I know, and they listen, and I want to be like that. They do not jump to any conclusion. You could say a whole bunch of yucky stuff about yourself, sin, all kinds of stuff. They don't gasp, they don't. I mean, it's wonderful. Being with them is like an oasis, okay? That's what you should be with your spouse, an oasis where they feel like they have, I was about to say a soft spot to land, but that's not really true. It's like where you're safe, where you feel loved, and where the other person doesn't judge you or think bad things about you, motivations. Okay, so this leads into what I was trying to give my first example, which was a little old lady came up to me at a church function years ago and said, are you pregnant? I was not pregnant. Okay? It wasn't even anywhere near. I mean, the last time I had had a baby was like several years before. So, okay. She was basically implying I was fat, which I'm not. I'm skinny. But anyway, so she asked if I was pregnant. So I went home. I went up to Alan, my husband, and I said, "Does this shirt make me look fat?"
Wait, guys. Whatever woman's in your life is going to ask you a question like this sometime, you know. Okay, it's if you're like me, I can't give a dishonest answer. I'm not gonna, it grates on me the wrong way. But on the other hand, you don't want to do something which is gratuitously, hurtful. So what I said to Susan was that, you've had 4 kids. You're not 20 years old anymore, okay? Which she took very, very badly. But think about it for a second. I mean, women, think about it when your man says something like that. Men are kind of more analytical, and if a lot of times they'll say something which is positive in a way that you're not expecting. And to be honest, what I said to my wife was not intended to say, okay, well, you used to be pretty, but now you're not. It was really more of listen, we're not young anymore. It would be unreasonable of me to expect you to look like a 20-year-old. It's unreasonable of me to think that you should have, that kind of a figure after you've had 4 children. That would, if I wanted that out of you, I would never have had kids with you, because basically going through a marriage, it ages you, and if I wanted my wife to have the figure she had when we were married, I mean, I shudder to think that she would want the figure that we had, that she'd want me to have the figure I had when I was, when we were married, because I've put on, a good 30-40 pounds since then. So I hope that she doesn't expect me to live up to that standard, and I don't expect her to live up to that standard. And that's really what I meant by that. I said, you've had 4 kids. How could I expect you to? I mean, you look good. I mean, you still look good. You look great, but we're getting old, and we're going to die of old age in about a week or two. So
we're in our 40s, in case you didn't know. I know we look really good.
So anyway, but I'm saying is that if especially women and men, I see this a lot, is that women will hear what a man says, and what the man said was not necessarily bad. There was a bad way you could take it, or there was a good way you can take it. Well, give them the benefit of the doubt. At least take them, think about what's the best way I can take that, and go with that. If you take the worst way, then you're just going to create a lot of conflict, and not necessarily what the man expected.
Right. But what women do is we fill in the blanks, and we twist what our husband says to hurt ourselves. And I didn't realize this until Alan pointed it out to me. And then I, for some reason, ever since then, I haven't done that, because I attribute good motives to him instead of attributing bad motives to him. But women do this in general, and I used to do it all the time. I would twist what he said to become hurt. I don't understand why I did that, and it wasn't until I stepped back and saw what I was doing that I was able to stop that habit. But like I said, he said that when I said, "Does this shirt make me look fat?" he said, "Well, you had 4 kids and you're not like the way that you were." I was hurt. And any woman would take that as, "You're fat and ugly and I don't desire you." Okay, I know that sounds like a really exaggeration, but see how I twisted what he said. I mean, what he was saying was actually sweet. I didn't realize that at the time whatsoever. Okay.
By the way, women, if you ask a question like that, you're just asking to be hurt. Okay, so I mean,
No,
maybe if
you're
you
the only one that
if
can
you
tell us.
if you want to to encourage your man to talk to you, maybe asking questions like that is not the best way to start out, because the guy just starts seeing red lights and oh my gosh, that's, again, he just wants to run off to his happy place. Not.
Olga says maybe just the lady was just not nice to ask that question, and that is a question that you should never ask. If you need to ask, are you pregnant? Okay, don't ask. Just a tip, Anyways, another example of listening or having trouble listening is the same gray-haired mentor that I was talking about earlier, who listens really well and is the wisest woman I know. She sometimes talks about Czech Republic history. I don't know why she does that. It is so dry and boring and tedious. Everything else she says is deep and meaningful and spiritual, and I love it, and I love her. With all my heart and soul, I love her, okay? But when she talks on and on and on and on and on and droning on and on, I want her to get to the point. Because I don't care about Czech Republic history. I care about the people there becoming saved and stuff. And we support missionaries there and stuff, and my heart is for those people. I pray for them all the time. But as far as the historical roots of something, I don't know. See, I wasn't listening. Anyway, okay, my point of this example...
Czech Republic history is very interesting, by the way.
Glossed over eyes over here. Anyway, what I'm saying is that women, okay, if you feel like your man is not listening to you, okay, it's because, like, when I was listening to this woman that I love with all my heart and soul, I had to whip my mind with a whip to pay attention to what she was saying. Don't make it that hard for your husband to listen to you. And see, I do this too. I like to add all the juicy details of something that occurred that was funny, and he wants me to get to the point. And to me, it's like telling a joke. I don't want to say the punchline at the beginning, otherwise the joke doesn't make sense, and I might as well not tell him, because it's no fun, I'll go tell some girl, some woman who will appreciate the development of the story and all the details. There's a reason I say all those details, and it's because it applies to it. And like, for example, when I talk to my best friend who is a woman, those details, she says, oh, well, this detail has to do with the conclusion you did over here. Whereas, see, if we deleted all those details, you wouldn't be able to do that. But anyway, I'm trying to justify how a woman talks, and that is not necessarily sin. What do you have to say about that?
Gosh, what can I say about that?
You want me to move on? My whole point is, women, especially when your husband is tired, try to get to the point and not go on, because I know, as a woman, you've been on the receiving end of a story that goes on and on and on of some other woman that's talking to you. So picture that and go, I don't want to be necessarily that way unless the story is worth it. In which case, hopefully your husband will listen. Okay, moving on. Now, it's sometimes hard to listen when you have opposite views on something, or you're judging them, or you're against what it is that they're saying, or something like that. Now, we had a fridge incident where the refrigerator stopped working, and so after work, my husband went off to buy a new refrigerator, and so he was going to go buy the refrigerator without me. I was like, oh my goodness, okay, because the refrigerator is like a major deal, and I knew that my husband wanted a freezer on the bottom, and see, his experience is different than my experience with the fridge. For him, he never goes in the freezer, so it should be on the bottom because no one ever uses it. Whereas for me, I open it and close it probably 30 or 40 times a day to get out all kinds of stuff, from coffee to figuring out what I need for the grocery list to figuring out what to make for dinner or what to make that week. Or I sometimes keep bread in there to make toast, all kinds of stuff for lunch, whatever. So I'm in and out of there all the time. I thought stuff is heavy when it's frozen. I might throw out my back. So to me, I felt like maybe if he chose a fridge without consulting me whatsoever, that I would suffer physically for 10 years. So I know that's going overboard. And anyways, so how did you feel in trying to pick out a fridge? I don't know if you later came home and then we went out together, but you were very, very frustrated. What was that frustration in your face before I listened to you?
Okay, well, first off, it's hard for me to clearly remember exactly what was going on in my head, but I know that I think the point that we're trying to arrive at here is that you're not necessarily communicating just because you're agreeing about everything. If both of you agree about everything, then it's not, there's no real need for communication, is there? I mean, why would you need to discuss things if you're already in agreement? And I know that with the case with the refrigerator, I mean, we had our previous refrigerator for 10 years. I mean, refrigerators have changed. I mean, they've changed in size, they've changed in shape, they've changed in features, and I know that along the lines I was thinking, boy, I really wish I had a fridge that did this, or boy, I really wish I had a fridge that did this. And so I was thinking, okay, those are some of the features that I want to look for in a fridge. And my wife had other ideas about what she wanted, and she thought that because I might not pick exactly the fridge she wants, that I was completely disregarding her opinion, which wasn't really the case. I mean, my wife had clearly communicated to me the things that she wanted, and I was considering those things, which is why I went out. I looked around. I tried to find some stuff, that would fill those, those needs necessarily. And I came back and I said, Susan, you're going to have to come with me because, the choices that I see out there that I can afford are not really matching with what you're demanding as far as the fridge goes. So if I pick this without you there, you're going to resent me forever for for picking not what you want. But the fact is, I was listening to you, and in a marriage, if you're listening, there's going to be disagreement. You're two separate people, right? So eventually, one of the two of you, there's going to have to be some compromise. There's going to have to be one person that says, okay, well, we'll do this your way and we'll do this my way. But but the fact is that if you talk to your spouse about something and say, this is what I want, and your spouse says, okay, I see that that's what you want, but I want this other thing, we're going to do this something different, that doesn't mean that they didn't listen to you.
Right. That's a really good point. Just because your husband isn't doing things your way doesn't mean that he's not listening to you. He can be listening and walking by the Spirit and choose the opposite of what I want, and that can be godly and correct, just so that you know. And then the other thing was that what actually happened is I saw the frustration, the exhaustion, and he was just, I looked in his face and I wanted so badly to take that away, take that exhaustion and frustration and exasperation out of his heart. And so I said, okay, and I finally shoved out of my mind what I wanted, and I allowed him to say what he wanted in a fridge, and I tried to see it through his eyes. Oh, this helps, okay? So try to see things from the eyes or the perspective of your husband so that you can see what it is that he is seeing. I mean, you have a greater influence over his heart and his mind if you can actually do that, by the way, anyway. So it's better for you anyway. But what I did was I listened to what he had to say. He was talking about what he wanted in the refrigerator, and suddenly I got all excited. And then I ended up choosing a refrigerator with a freezer on the bottom. We've had it for 2 months. I love it. I have not thrown out my back. It's not bad at all. In fact, it's better than our other one. So it ended up that the opposite of what I wanted was better for me. I promise that this is true, okay? And actually, if you're yielding to God and you're allowing your husband to lead you, there's a tranquility in knowing that God's will be done through your husband. But this actually, I know that it's hard to say this to women, because a lot of times the man disregards the husband, the wife completely, and treats her like she's stupid and stuff. I've seen that happen so many times. So I could see how that wouldn't, even if you're trying to do it, it's kind of like you really need both people to be walking closer to Christ and also listening to each other. Like I said at the very beginning, it's crucial for a wife to listen to her husband. Actually, I believe that's even more important than for a husband to listen to the wife, because the husband is leading. But Scripture says that both people are fools if they don't listen to each other. So Scripture does say that.
Well, it's for any men who may be watching this. If you're not listening to your wife about virtually everything in your marriage, if you're not, at least considering what she's got to say, you're an idiot. God made husbands and wives complementary. Men and women, have different strengths, and if you are making all of your decisions without the counsel of your wife, you're doing without a tool that God gave you. So you should.
The wife completes her husband. Scripturally.
You may be in a leadership role, but there are skills that your wife has, as far as intuition and understanding that you will never have in your life. So you need to listen to your wife, but that, it doesn't mean that that you listen and then disregard. Obviously you got to pay attention, and you have to consider that what she's counseling you about could be very important. I think last night when we were talking about this, I thought about Pilate's wife, when she said, have nothing to do with this Jesus guy, because I had a bad dream, and what did Pilate do? He ignored, his wife, and how did that turn out for him? So, being the governor, obviously he's in a position of authority all the time. So he thinks, okay, I've got the power, I've got the skills, I've got the knowledge, I have everything I need to make all of these decisions. And yet his wife came to him and said, I can't even explain it, but I don't like this. If you're ever involved in in some deal or something like that, and your wife comes to you, I would say, okay, halt, let's think about this, let's think about this twice, and proceed very, very cautiously.
Yeah, I think it's crucial for the wife to listen to her husband and the husband to listen to the wife in order for there to be true oneness in your marriage. One last thing that I wanted to address is that when I am sinning, sometimes Alan will refuse to listen to me. We'll talk about slander, not the other thing we talked about last night. That could be a whole separate webinar. About anger, which can cause someone to shut down if you're angry. We'll address that in a separate webinar. But let's talk about slander, gossip, something that you're talking badly about somebody else. If your husband cuts you off and doesn't want you to sin any further, I believe that they're doing the right thing to not listen to you. Like one time I said, it was like ages ago. I don't slander people anymore, but, well, I don't think I do. We probably all do without knowing. But back years ago, I said something negative about somebody, and you just immediately nipped it in the bud and said, you will not talk badly about X person, whatever. And I immediately stopped. And I'm glad that he stopped me from sinning. That's called shepherding your wife. And I have a lot of articles about how my husband leads me spiritually on my website, susanevans.org. And it's under Faith Made Real right now. But there's probably going to be, if you're listening to this 10 years from now, there'll probably be a whole separate tab on marriage that you can click on. Right now, as we're filming this, I have over 40 articles on marriage, and it matters so much to me. I've just seen so many marriages suffering, and it gives me so much pain, which is why I have such a deep heart for marriages getting having more oneness and functioning properly the way that they ought to be scripturally. And so I plan to do some more webinars on marriage. And so I hope that you have enjoyed this webinar, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.